to come in?
Yeah, it's going in now. It's just setting up. Just give it a few. I'm gonna watch my phone for comments and questions that's gonna pop into you.
Okay.
So don't worry about me looking down sometimes. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining the Open Mic Foundation on the Sunday afternoon in South Africa. We have Sue Baer from New York. Welcome, Sue.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Today, we have a time difference. So, Sue, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out and waking up early and joining us. It is probably 9 a.m. your time, and it's in South Africa. It's 3 p.m. So, thank you so much. I'm very honored and blessed that you could take the time to share with us today your story and your insights. Before we get started, I just want to say welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. Um, we have different areas of subscribing to Stories and Open Mic Foundation. You can catch on YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel called the Open Mic Foundation. Click the subscribe button and you'll be able to see all the stories that's coming from all parts of the world on a weekly basis. So all the stories are uploaded onto the YouTube channel. You can catch up on Instagram, and our handle on Instagram is Open Mic Foundation, and there's an underscore at the end. And on Facebook, which we are here today. So yes, so Sue, thank you so much. And today's topic is horsepower. I love horses. I have ridden one. They are the most beautiful creatures, I believe. For me personally, I love horses because they're free-spirited animals. That's what I believe. So, when you told me that you wanted to speak about this, I was like, yeah, let's talk about this because it's intriguing. So I'm going to hand it over to you for you to start sharing, your story, and let's get into this.
Well, I have a few different stories about a major horse that I had in my life named Frosty Boss Lady. That was her whole official name. And
Okay.
she was an Appaloosa horse, which if you've ever seen the horses with the speckles all over,
Yeah, yeah,
they can
yeah.
be solid and just have the speckles on their butt, their dots on their butt, or dots all over. But she,
Yes.
as an Appaloosa, I'd never seen any horse like her. She was gray and she had the spots all through her. So she's all like, almost like a moldy. She's just this cool gray. And then she had a white stripe down her forehead, Frosty. And my parents went through a few other horses before getting her to me. Like one of them, they always leased other people's horses. They were like other people's bad horses. Like I know that now, but like I would blame myself. Like one of them I went to feed her and she kicked me in the leg and I still have the hematoma and the mark. And then another one like was super skinny and like I ended up tied to it one day because we had to tie them out on the lawn and the horse spun around. So it was like really dangerous situations. But then once I got Frosty, it was like we just gelled. I wasn't falling off as much. I was like really able to ride her. So I wanted to tell this funny story about how that I feel like these stories are going to tell what kind of a kid and what kind of person I was. Like getting things by any means possible is really like the theme. So we
Yes.
had and that and a sheer stubbornness to me to just get what I wanted and to do what I wanted. So one day I had we had this rotten rooster and he was like always after everybody. He was just so nasty. He chased my little sister. And one day I chased him for 45 minutes with a rake because he made me so angry. And he was chasing my little sister. So I grabbed him and I put a dog chain around his neck, which it didn't fit, rooster's neck's like that big and the dog chain's like that big. And then I rode him up and down the road to like let him know, like, I'm the boss of you. But the greatest thing about riding with a chicken or a rooster, because I used to also take my chicken Beauty out for a ride, but not like to show her who was boss, is like chickens like want to hold their head in one spot, but the horse moves. So the chicken's like, doing this as you're riding. So you think of like the old Westerns, and the horses are like do 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 do. So that's what was happening. I ended up riding her so much that it actually started to wear her feet down. And I had to take breaks from riding her because we didn't have the money for shoes for the horse or anything. We grew up very poor, and like pick up bottles on the side of the road, like recyclables kind of poor to buy milk. So,
Okay.
when horses' feet were messed up, you didn't get shoes, you just didn't ride her for a while. But I mostly have to say I rode bareback because I was too lazy to put the saddle on the horse. And
Okay.
then I and sometimes not even so the saddle, you sit on, and then there's the bridle that you put, and then you put the bit in their mouth. And I would just ride her with a dog leash that I connected the ends and steer her and try to stop her with just that. So it was like just, yeah, that's what I mean. Just
How old were you?
like 14,
Okay.
like pretty little kid. Um, but like connection. So there was a lot of connection with this horse and all of this riding. So we ended up gelling, me and Frosty, that I would think it and she would do it. And so I started working more and more on that trust. And so I taught her how to buck. So the bucking is when the rear end comes up in the air.
Yeah.
So I would put my feet back towards her back end, and then I would say loudly, buck, and she would buck. So now I just did this because I was a quirky kid, and we had no TV or like internet, so you just like taught your horse to do dumb shit. But it came in handy because I was riding this horse a lot down, I'm talking roads with tractor trailers going by, like, because I wanted to be free. I wanted to be free of my house and away from my family. And so this horse was basically like having a car at 14, 15 years old. Like I could go anywhere I wanted, but I mean, I was riding down dangerous highways. So the tractor trailers are going by, and I decided I'm just going to ride to my friend's house. Like, don't even think anything of it. It's like 5 miles away. I'm just going to get on my horse and ride down these highways. Like I've seen them do this in Puerto Rico down the sides of the highways. So I'm riding, and I don't know if I was bareback or not. I was riding into this to go see my friend into town, and this man is walking on the side of the road, and he's hitchhiking, and he grabs her bridle to stop her. And he said, "You can fit two on that horse." And I was like, holy crap, because I don't know this guy. Like, what's he going to do when he gets on the horse? Like, if it was just some other person that was like random and seemed like nice, but he was scary. He was a hitchhiking guy, and I was a young girl. And I said, no. I said, because, and I put my feet to the back, and then I said, she bucks. So she bucks and startles him, and he lets go of the reins. The other thing that I taught her was to run from a standstill. So then I shifted position, jacked up her reins, went like that, and we flew. She went
Wow.
from a standstill, from his startling to cantering off. Like, so she really like saved me, you know,
Wow.
that with that connection. Um, and but then I had another incident where it actually backfired something I taught her. So I wanted her to have ultimate trust in me. And so I would go and I'd grab like one of my t-shirts and I'd tie it around her eyes, and I would ride her around blind. So she couldn't see. She had to trust my guidance. And at first she was like nervous. And then she finally started to get that I wasn't going to walk her into anything, stumble her over anything. And she learned to trust me riding her blind. Like, who thinks of these things? So,
My, that's I've not even heard of that before.
yeah, you can actually ride blind horses. There are blind horses, and they function.
Wow. Well, I guess I mean, you normally hear of, dogs that are blind. You normally hear cats that are blind. Never heard of a horse that's blind
Yeah,
though,
no, it
and that
happens.
you could still ride them.
Yeah, no, you can, as long you're the one guiding them. And so they just trust you that you're not going to run them into anything. So since that, so then she had the trust in me. So one day in my typical silly fashion, I didn't put the bit in her mouth and the bridle. And I was like riding and I was like, oh, I want to ride further away from the house, which is dumb because you really can't. I had only a halter on her, which just goes over the nose and here. And then I attached the lead rope to the side. So there's no bit, nothing to really stop her. It's just kind of for casual riding. But I don't know. I just, like I said, too lazy to go back to the barn. So I just took off on this pretty long ride. And then we were heading for home, coming back. And anyone who's ever ridden a horse knows that coming back to the barn, they go a lot faster because they're like ready to come back to home.
Yeah.
And so we're riding along, and next thing you know, she starts running, and the running gets out of control. And I realize that I can't stop her. So I'm trying everything to stop this horse. Like all the pulling isn't helping. And then
Wow.
I start pulling her as hard as I can. I start punching her in the neck. Like,
In the
stop.
neck.
In the neck. Like, stop, stop, stop. So I'm like, shoot, I've got to stop this horse. I have to figure out a way to stop this horse. So I'm like, so you go start going through the scenarios of what will make this horse stop. So I say, well, if I cover her eyes and she can't see, she won't ride. So here I am, the horse is galloping like full blast down this field. And I'm reaching forward and I'm cover her eyes. And so she's
Wow.
galloping and her eyes are covered, but we had established that trust.
Wow,
So,
that's phenomenal.
so she's like, why would I stop? You have my back, even though you have my eyes. You are going to guide me. So somehow I'm seeing around this horse like running like crazy. And I look ahead and I see a ditch. And she isn't going to see that. So I had to quickly uncover her eyes, then get prepared, no saddle, for her to jump the ditch.
Did she jump that? Did she make it?
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we jump the ditch. And I think, okay, now we're running towards the highway across this field. And we were actually riding across an airport, like where there was like runways and stuff. And I think I have to stop her before I get to the highway because she runs across the highway, we're both dead. So I realized, oh, right, she doesn't have shoes on her feet, the metal little shoes. And
Yeah.
so I realized that if I run her onto the pavement in the road, I'm going to hurt her feet and she's going to stop. And it worked. And she was galloping full bore, but she would steer, but she wouldn't stop. So I steered her to the road and I got her. Then she started like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And then I got her slow enough and I jumped off and I led her home because I was a little smarter after that. But I couldn't ride her for probably at least 2 weeks after that. Like the bottoms of her feet were actually like purple and bruised. And I felt bad, but we would have died. There were so many cases where we would have died.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, and now here's another dumb thing that I taught her that backfired on me. Boy, I did dumb stuff. How did we live through these years? So the other thing I taught her to do, which I always thought was fun, was to chase bicycles. So, and
Bicycles.
we would race bicycles, and
Yeah.
the UPS truck, the big delivery trucks, would
Yeah.
race too. So one day I didn't realize there was a bicycle coming up behind me, and we were riding along and the bike passed us. And before I knew it, she was like, well, you taught me to race bikes. So she took off like crazy. And this was someone who was like, not just like on a casual bike. This was someone on like a real, like, proper riding bike that you can go faster on. So she couldn't catch it and I couldn't stop her because this is what I taught her. So she ended up
Wow.
on the side of the road. You have those culverts and the pipes. So
Mm-hmm.
she ends up catching her hoof on one of those culvert pipes and going flying and I went over her head, no helmet. I wasn't wearing a helmet for any of this stuff either, but flying over her head, I landed head first. Luckily, it was the culvert, like it had all leaves and mud and dirt. So I could
Okay.
barely like lift my head up because I had solid like leaves and mud stuck in my head. And
So
then
through
I couldn't get her up. But she
all
was
of
okay.
this, so through all of this, yeah, what are some of the injuries have you had with this horse?
None. Not really.
None, with
Oh,
no helmet.
yeah. So the only injury I ever got was there was this dog named Rascal, and he was a really bad dog out. Like back then, people would keep dogs more on a chain and in their backyard tied to a dog house. People don't do that as much today, but this dog was always after me and my horse, but he was on a chain. And the one day I was riding by around the corner, bareback, of course, and I heard the snap of the chain. And I knew the dog was coming for us. And I was trying to get by the dog and get like further away from it. And the dog came after us and then kind of like came up the horse towards my leg. So I like moved my leg out of the way and the horse tried to jump out of the way and I fell on the road. And I still have a scar on my knee from falling all my weight like down on from the horse onto the pavement. So yeah, I still
Wow.
have that. But you would think that I would have like a major head injury, but no, no.
Wow. So why a horse?
Well, since I was pretty little, I had a connection to them so much that I grew up in New Jersey, so it was like a little
Mhm.
bit like, of course, all this other stuff took place in the country, but I lived in New Jersey, and my parents would take me out. They saw that I loved horses, and they would take me out to this horse to visit in the country. And I think I sent you the picture of it where I was wearing mittens, and the horse was like snuffing my face. And so what I would do is I would rub my mittens all over the horse, and then I would have that horse smell, and I would take that back to my bedroom, and I would take them out periodically and smell those mittens. And anyone who loves horses know it's the same thing with babies. Like you smell your baby's head. So that's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
connection. Like you smell that baby's head and then you get the connection. And it's the same thing with the horse. So the connection probably started when I was about 8, and I always say they're in my blood. So another thing I used to do with there was a couple horses on our farm, not just mine, and I would get out there with these like super light slippers, but they had a decent
Mhm.
bottom on them.
Yeah.
I would get the horses to run and I would run with them, and I could keep up with them. I was a pretty fast runner. So I guess that's early cross country running. And I would just run in the field, and I felt like I knew what it felt like to run as a horse, if that makes sense. Like I
Mhm.
knew what it was like to be inside their body. So maybe I was a horse at one time. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. You know, you hear a lot of stories about how animals actually forms part of healing, or they actually take you through the most difficult part in one's life or challenges that they face. I mean, certainly you spoke about, you know, your early childhood where you've connected with horses, you know, from such a young age. And from what I know, Sue still, I mean, I think just about recently you still had horses, right, in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you've been going through that journey, you know, with them for such a long time as well. What has been your most favorable or most memorable moment, you know, with the horses that you've had throughout these many decades? I'm gonna say decades, okay? I just gave away your age, right? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's fine. I'm over 50. That's cool. And still riding. Oh, really memorable time with them. Um, Really, there's a lot of care that goes to with them. So maybe not with a personal horse, but my godmother in the state of Connecticut would breed Arabian horses, and so there were
Okay.
whole summers spent just caring for those horses
Mm-hmm.
and being the first one to ride them and not having fear and knowing you've built a foundation before you've gotten on that back, because that's a real partnership. I think
Mm.
old-timey kind of ways they trained horses was very rough and like a
Mm.
forced situation. And then over the years, what's so nice is it has become a partnership. So there's been several horses that the very first time they've been ridden, it's been by me, and
Okay.
that's
Wow.
really cool. There's been so many great rides. It's hard to pick one or like one one moment. Um, but another, so here's another crazy thing that happened, that this wasn't with my horse, but I used to spend the summers in Connecticut at this boarding farm, and so it meant that other people kept their horses at this farm in Connecticut.
Hmm.
And so they were paying to have their horses kept there, kind of like you keep your kid at daycare, right?
Yeah.
So my godmother went away this particular summer on an Arabian horse buying trip to buy more breeding horses. And so we were left with a 19-year-old in charge, which 19-year-olds are not good to be in charge of farms.
Not at
So
all.
she was left in charge, and she was a little bit of a, she smoked a lot of pot, let's just be honest.
Okay.
So she wasn't like paying much attention to what was going on. So I like to do things that are a little daring and naughty and rebellious, but not so rebellious, maybe you would be arrested for it. So I ended up taking out one of the boarders' horses. So this horse that belonged to someone else, I took it
Okay.
out, and it was a Mustang, like the Mustang, the wild
Ooh.
Mustang horses,
Yeah.
Bernie.
Ooh, those are beautiful.
Yeah. So he was typical Mustang. He has the yellow body, the black stripe down his back. And I thought, I've always wanted to ride Barney, and my godmother's not here to supervise, and Andrea seems to think it's okay. So we took out all the border horses. It's like stealing people's kids from daycare to take them to the zoo. Like, we seriously did this. And in Connecticut, there's a lot of rock. And so we ended up on these rock government trails. And the next thing you know, same thing. All these stories seem to be the same, where the horse literally like takes its own power and runs off on us. So these horses had the shoes on them, the metal shoes, and I'm just watching the horses in front of me and the sparks coming off of their feet. And this
Wow.
horse is just running full bore now. I never had a horse do this before. All of my horses, like, you know how their heads are kind of high and then their neck is kind of
Yes.
right there for you to ride? Not on a Mustang. The way Mustangs run, and you could watch this if you watch some videos on this, is they go flat. So the head goes out and down. So you're
Yeah.
riding
So it's usually like, it's like,
like this,
yeah.
right there. This
Yeah.
horse's head's gone. And you're on this little English saddle, and English saddles are basically like almost like having a pad on the horse. It's like nothing. The Western saddles have the big horn and something to hold on to and something behind you. So in this saddle, there's nothing. So I look down, and I'm essentially riding a bullet. So this horse is just flying, his head's disappeared, and I'm like almost like hovering like above this horse going a mile a minute down this rock trail. And it was, but when you're like 15, the things that are like, you would die now, you'd have a heart attack. Like, then it's like you're sort of scared and you're like, oh god,
Yeah.
I could die. But it was like, then you're like, yeah. But it
Wow.
did teach me not to like steal other people's horses after that, because I had never thought that the head would disappear and the horse would go flat. I mean, it was like riding the top of a train.
How did you control it?
No, that's where, like with the power, the horse took his power. When they do that and they take that bit in their mouth and they take their power, there's
Wow.
nothing you can do but be, like yoga, like on your own mat. Like, you have to just deal with your own self, because
Yeah.
you've lost the horse at that point. You are not in partnership anymore. They're doing what they want to do.
So
And that's
basically just go with the horse and just flow with it.
And you got to remember, they're over 1,000 pounds. So, you're 100 and something pounds. You're not going to be able to have a really great argument and win.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, I
So
have to ask this question, right? So
yeah,
did your godmother find out that you took the Mustang out?
yes. This is what she said. She said, "You have access to all these other horses in the barn, and the only ones that you chose to take out were the boarders." So we were caught. The reason we were caught, and I hadn't thought this through either because 15-year-old like stoner brains don't think this through, was I hadn't thought to wash the sweat marks off the horse from the saddle.
Okay.
So
So
yeah, well,
you left residue, you left evidence.
yeah, yeah. And her
Wow.
peers are paying money. It's just like, if you stole someone's kid from daycare and brought them to the zoo and they came home with cotton candy, like yeah, it was totally like there was no way to hide it.
Wow. So what it is like for all these years, you still, you've had, from what I understand, so you've had your own ranch where you've had your own horses on there and, were you breeding horses at one stage or you just had them for riding?
I never bred them. Um,
Okay.
I always had them for riding or as pets. Like I ended up with a beautiful Arabian at one time, which was that's pretty incredible. Years ago, there was a magazine that if you wrote in a good enough story, they would send
Mm-hmm.
you a free Arabian. And I always in
Oh,
my head like wrote this story and was like, please give me an Arabian horse for free, So I had this story in my head, but I never sent it. Years
okay.
later, I was in a bar and this girl said to me, I have a horse I'm giving away. And it was an Arabian. Like,
She was just giving it away.
yeah, that's how because I went on a long hiatus without horses. And then years later in a bar, this girl was giving away this horse. And then I ended up with a horse again. And she said, yeah, she goes, just come and pick him up. And she says, I raised him like a baby. And I said, oh my gosh, okay. And so we went to pick him up and there he was at the top of the field. His name was Tank, of all things. He was a delicate, sweet creature, but she had named him Tank, like whatever. And he raised his head and and then he charged right straight towards me, towards the fence. Well, I just stood there crying and grabbing her. I go, is that him? Is that him? Is that my horse? She's like, yeah, that's your horse. So it was
Wow.
incredible to have him. But she had told me he was trained, and I was naive enough to believe her. And I just simply saddled him up and tried to ride him like a normal riding horse. And it turned out he wasn't even trained at all. Like my first rides on him were like insane. Like he didn't know what I was asking. And he didn't want to move forward and he didn't want to do this. And he was spinning around and he was jumping away from stuff. And oh my gosh, did we fight. Um, but what an incredible horse.
You certainly have a connection with horses. I do believe that, the animals that we have within ourselves, you get spirit animals as well. That you generally, I think it's more of, how can I say, more of something that you're drawn to, and that you feel and that you nurture and that you have this little soft spot for them or maybe a bigger soft spot for them. And I think that is sounds like that was that great connection that you could, connect with these horses and they trusted you. I mean, the stories that you're sharing, that riding a horse blindfolded, who does that?
Yeah, yeah, they did, but it's like it's almost weird knowing what I know now because I've done so many lessons and now I'm like, oh, that's all the things I could have done with this horse, but instead we just did them all instinctively. And now I
Yeah.
do them with the actual proper commands. And now I think, my gosh, I ride with a riding vest, I ride with a helmet, I ride with
Okay.
chaps. Like I never considered my attire when I headed out to ride. I just was like, it was
Yeah.
like, there was a lot of accidental riding. Like I didn't even intend to ride. Like one night by moonlight, I was just running around the horse field with my slippers with
Yeah.
the, seeing the horses and being, just wanted to be with them. And I got the gumption to ride, but I had no tack, no nothing. And so I took off my training bra I put that around the horse's neck. And then I could jump from the ground. Like I didn't even need to step on anything. I was agile enough that I would just bareback this
Yeah.
up onto the horse, had the training bra, and it was like going, wah, wah, I was like stretching. And all
You
the
know,
horse, and I like made her ride around like that.
so something's very interesting that's coming to my mind, right? You know, think about it this way. If you hadn't had all those safety precautions, because that's what happened, right? You started off with not having the vest, you started off with not having the helmet. um, you actually went on intuition when you jumped onto that horse's back, right?
Mm.
Not understanding from a safety perspective. Now you're so risk averse, right? In the sense that I have to have my vest on, I have to get saddled up, I need to have my helmet. But I truly, truly believe, and I think we tend not to do this. I think, especially as women, and I'm going to say this as women, right? We tend to become so risk averse in the sense that I have to have my helmet or I have to have this in order to protect myself. Let me not take the risk because I might fall. Let me take this and not do this because this could be the consequences of what it could be. But you didn't think about that, right? Because kids at that age don't think about that. They just get on and they go on with it, right? There's not a second or doubt in their mind to think about these things. And they just go. So really, really work with me here, right? And listen to my thought pattern, because we tend to do more of that now when we are older. Why do we not think, a lot of people today is that we don't think like kids anymore. We've grown up, we don't do the silly things. Would you do that now that you're older, now that you know what the risks are? Would you get on a horse bareback without anything and ride that horse again?
I actually do ride bareback too, still.
You see? You see?
Yeah.
So we
With the
tend to, I
helmet,
mean,
with the helmet
with
in a
that.
more controlled environment. If a horse took off on me bareback right now, I think I would
Yeah.
probably die.
Yeah. So seriously, I think
Yeah.
sometimes we look at things and we say we have to have everything first in order to do something. You didn't have to have the helmet to ride the horse. You didn't seek the permission of your godmother to ride the Mustang, right? You didn't. You did it because you were confident, you had intuition, and because you wanted to do it, you did it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a scientific answer for some of that, and that's a
Yeah.
little boring, but it's that our brains really aren't fully developed until we're in our 20s. And so
Yeah.
when we say we didn't think, we actually really didn't think
No, we
because we didn't
didn't.
have the capacity to think. But
Yeah.
think about what happens in our lives as women as we have children. And so
Yes.
when we start thinking, we think, oh gosh, if I die, my
Yeah.
kid is not going to have a mom.
Hmm.
So that's like
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
part of it, is not leaving that kid, or you start thinking through disability. And also by the time you get older, you also have seen some pretty hard things happen, and some hard things have happened to you. So the illusion of not being hurt is gone.
Yep.
I feel like like all those falls, I pretty much bounced back. And like I said, I
Yeah.
didn't have any long-term injuries from that. But I
Yeah.
had a bad horse accident with a
Hmm.
horse that I raised from 6 months old, and I was the first one to ride, and had a pretty bad accident with her. And so, of course, I was probably wearing a vest and probably wearing a helmet. It can't protect everything. But
Yep.
she came up on me and smacked me in the face, and it pushed my lip right into my teeth and pushed my teeth straight back in my mouth. So I had a gap here, and my lip
Yeah.
came off and was hanging. And
Wow.
so when you know that, and it's something bad actually did happen, then the fear creeps in. And
Yeah.
it's so that's why I kind of force myself to still
Hmm.
ride. And actually I'm riding a really, really big horse right now at a farm, and we're jumping. And I
Okay.
finally just told the instructor that jumping makes me nervous. And she was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know. And I said, well, I haven't said. And I said, I'm breathing and talking to myself the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
To actually control the fear that you're feeling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Okay.
sometimes I'm driving to the riding lesson and I'm going, this week I'm going to just tell her I don't want to jump. I just want to do flat work. I don't want to jump. Oh my gosh, I hope the horse doesn't spook this week because she's big. She's a really big jumping horse. She was a champion jumping horse, and now I'm riding her as a lesson horse. And
Okay.
yeah. And here's another thing I've learned over the years is I used to just let horses kind of do what they wanted because I didn't know. And the funny thing was that all happened during a time I had no personal power in my life. Being in the
Okay.
abusive home I was in, I was not, having power was a dangerous thing. And so you just simply, for your own saving, you had to not show any power. And now I've started to come into my own power and take my power back. And so now I've got a hold of the reins and I actually have the horse moving when I tell her to move. So
Oh,
I
that's
love
beautiful.
saying, yeah, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. So riding this horse and having more control over her and making it more of a partnership that we both are respecting each other is made it so I now have more control and power that I've taken back in my life, which is great.
Wow. That's beautiful. I mean, learning how to connect and learning how to trust. Speaking from my own experience, trust is not something that comes easily, right? Trust is earned. It's not given. That's what I believe. Okay. And it's very hard, when trust is broken and to gain trust. I mean, that's with animals as well, right? You have animals and they trust you for you to lead them as the rider or to make sure that they're not in harm, or that you are keeping them safe. It's the same with humans. So trust is definitely something, but taking back your power is a phenomenal accomplishment. I think one can actually um, get done. But in actual fact, is that a horse had to teach you these things, that connection and that trust, and showed you how you can take back your power. Wow, that's beautiful in its own right.
You're exactly right that it's based on like trust and who's in power. And you think, well, now you're a mean person and you control this horse, and that sounds bad. But the thing is with an animal, especially an animal like, so prey animals, they have their eyes on the side, so they can see out. Like horses have their eyes on the side because they can be
Right.
eaten, and predators have the eyes in front. And so it's actually not relaxing and very stressful for a horse to be the leader. So I would always make all my horses like the leader. Like when they felt like running, they ran, obviously. And now
Yeah.
I'm deciding this for them because think about the danger. You've got 1,000-pound animal and you've given your power over to them. So I've had to learn to be more of an alpha, stronger personality, but not in a mean way. We're not whipping this animal. And then that horse can then relax and say, oh, you've got it. I don't have to worry about the
Sure.
tiger coming out of the woods because you've got it. And actually, if you ever ride horses out on a trail, the horse that's riding in the front is the most stressed and looking. And
Hmm.
then you could just look at a line of horses and then look at the rest of the horses in the line. Their heads are down and they're relaxed. They're just leading. They're
I did
leading.
not know that.
The stress is really on the leader.
Wow. I've done something new. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So now and the same thing with dogs. If you ever watch that guy, the dog whisperer guy, I love him. He's from Mexico. Is it Cesar? The
Cesar. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So if you watch every single one of those YouTube videos, all he does is put his shoulders back and say, I'm in charge. You don't need to worry. And that dog relaxes. Every single YouTube episode is exactly the same. That is the vein of You don't have to worry. A dog is going to protect an owner if
Yeah.
you are not the leader. And I have dogs too. And I started to learn this through dog training too. So this woman, this German Shepherd trainer taught me, and she said, wow, you're a good trainer. And I go up to people's dogs and I can pull my giant 90-pound German Shepherd back and say, no, you heel. I have it. I've got it under control. And she says, okay, as she relaxes. Those little
Wow.
yappy dogs that are protecting these, women, these like, they're like, oh, my dog is just, the dog is protecting you because you are not in control.
Hmm.
You've given
That's
your
a very
power.
good, that's a very good point, Sue, right? Because if you're not in control, the animal is going to step in or step front and going to take charge and going to take control, right? It's the same with the horse as well. So what an analogy. Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. It's something that you can definitely see between animals, how animals sense your intuition and sense your confidence and sense if you, I think, stressing in danger as well. Hence why they step in for you. Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, it's even deeper than that because it's your own personality of I'm not stepping up into my power. So
Yeah.
it's sort of them telling you you don't have your own power, and you're also making me nervous because I can't have your power for you. So when you see these dogs or horses that are out of control,
Yeah.
it's like they're trying to absorb the whole thing. So you can be a true partnership when I'm in power of myself, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily so much over you, but I'm showing you that I'm in my own power. Now we can really be a partnership.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's intense. And I hope for the people that are watching, and will be watching, once we're done, because most people are, are busy and things, but hopefully they can come into this on this talk, and those the people that have animals, for them to see and to hear what you're saying, because we underestimate the animals. We love our animals, but we do underestimate them. We really do underestimate them. I'm a big lover of a German Shepherd. I love German Shepherds. I had one myself
Oh.
for 13 years. It was the most saddest day of my life when I had to put him down.
Mm.
Um, and he was like a baby to me. And he knew when I was in distress, and he knew when to come and comfort me. He knew when my son needed protection. He also knew when he just wanted to put his head on our lap. He was such a comforting soul. He was absolutely a brave and courageous dog, which I tremendously love and still do. I do miss him a lot. I do miss him a lot.
My godmother also bred German Shepherds as well as the Arabians, and I now have a German Shepherd. So that connection is there. Everything you need to know about them is in their name, Shepherd. They
Shepherd.
become your shepherd, and they want to
Yeah.
look out for you. And that's how mine is. And so, and then you asked me about a memorable time. There used to be this really big, giant horse I used to ride named Cochise, which
Cheese.
an Indian
Yeah.
name, and would ride him out in Connecticut. And my best rides were not these crazy take off on me rides. Is I used to take the German Shepherd Kazan,
Yeah.
and he would follow me on the big horse, and we would go on long trail rides. And I never questioned that. Why? Like, oh, am I going to lose him in the woods? I always knew that he would find me again, and that I would see him coming in and out of the woods, and he loved to go places, and he would stay with us but do his own thing. And we all had this just beautiful time of riding the horse. There's the dog as a companion. And boy, if you could freeze a moment, like that would be a moment I think I would want to freeze.
Wow.
Is
Oh,
trail
that's
with that German Shepherd. Thank you for making me remember that.
well, thank you for bringing it up as well, right? I mean, we all are dog lovers, and we do our very best to take care of them, and they do their very best to take care of us as well. And a lot of people that have animals, whether it's cats or whether it's dogs or horses in your case, they are part of the family. You treat them as part of the family. I have a friend that's online right now, and she's watching. Her name's Eva. Hi, Eva. So Eva has ridgebacks.
Oh,
Beautiful,
I love those.
beautiful ridgebacks she has, right? And if I'm not mistaken, Eva, I think you have three, maybe four, and they are the most welcoming dogs she has, and they are her kids. And she says that's their um, Eva, if you're listening, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And she does so much of work. She even's part of the Ridgeback Rescue, and she just loves her Ridgebacks. They are so beautiful. There's this one that she has. I think her name's Temba, and she's the youngest of the three. And she's beautiful, she's friendly, and she's playful. She plays literally like a kid. She just plays. So yeah, I think having these moments with our animals and cherishing the time and for them to connect with us is absolutely special. So any last final words from you guys? If you have any questions for Sue, comments, please send your comments or questions through for her. Any last words of wisdom, Sue, and any insights that you would like to share with people that would be watching it later on?
I guess that the fear is there, and the fear is not something that means you shouldn't do something. Like I said, I've ridden horses for a lot of my life, from like 8 years old and here being 52. And
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a reason to not do it. Just communicate it, and communicate it to yourself. And what is it? I heard a quote. It said, "Fear is just your feelings asking for a hug."
Oh, okay. Say that again. Fear.
So fear is your feelings asking for a hug. So while I'm driving, well, I look perfectly normal and I'm dressed like an equestrian and I'm going to a barn, and I've been to the barn, and I look like you don't know what's going on behind the surface of the person
Yeah.
of, what if today I fall off this horse? What if? And so I'm,
Yes.
the whole time I'm driving there, I'm like, hugging my feelings and saying, I'm gonna get back on that horse. But even if you don't ride, like, still not shying away from the connection because of fear also, because this isn't all about riding. So horses represent power. So it's easy to shy away from our own power
Yeah.
and to just step into that.
Yeah, that's special. That is truly, truly special. Sue, I want to say thank you so much for sharing this beautiful, beautiful journey that you've been on, from the time that you were so young until today, enjoying your journey with the horses, and teaching me so much. I've learned so much from you. Thank you so much for that. That's been really awesome. And I look forward to seeing you in New York. I'm saying it out loud, Sue. Sue and I met many years ago. Sue, it's 2 years now, right?
I think you think this year's maybe even 3 since we went to Bali.
I
This
think
is
it was
this
3.
random thing. Like, I decided like 2 weeks before I was going to go, and then who knew I was going to meet,
Yeah. So I met Sue in Bali a couple of years ago, and I think it's almost 3 years. I'm not sure.
November.
November would be, yeah. Yeah, November would be 3 years. So yeah, I met Sue and we've been in contact, and it's been amazing, listening to stories and hearing people what they've been through, and just for you just sharing the story, to the world today. So thank you so much for that. It's been really inspiring. Also knowing that you've taken back your power, and trusting it's things that we all go through in life, whether not now, later on in our lives, but we're all experiencing it. Even now with COVID, I think a lot of people have been struggling with the trust, also have been
Mhm.
struggling with taking back their power and saying, how do I get back on my feet after this? What is it that I do going forward? I do think a lot of people out there is feeling it, and it's getting more tougher for them. And to your point, Sue, guys, hang in there. We all have been through it. In some of us, we're still going through it, and in some people will probably face it going forward. And it is part of life. And something that you should take back is that we all go through it, but we do get through it. We do.
True. Just hug those feelings. But no,
Yeah,
thank you.
hug those fears, right?
Yeah, thank you for letting me share this stuff because it was really nice to recall the memories. And it's like a nice cherry hard candy in your mouth to like taste that sweetness again of those things that you do forget in daily life. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share them, and then for me to remember them again and enjoy them again, those stories about those amazing horses. So thank you.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Sue. Anytime, you are most welcome at open mic at any time that you'd want to share something. And I'm gonna wish you all the best in your new horse that you're busy that you're busy with. I'm sure you're gonna move past that fear, and you're a fantastic woman on yourself, right? You are just challenging, and you're just gonna take it, and you're gonna get your power back from him, and you're gonna take control.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Open Mic this afternoon. I truly appreciate you guys taking the time. And Sue, thank you so much. And have a blessed day in New York. I hope the sun's out. Is it getting colder there?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. All right. Well, stay safe and stay warm. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Have a blessed day. Cheers, Sue.
Cheers.